Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Madhur. I'm a current student here, and I'll be your host for the rest of the evening. I hope you all had a good lunch. So now, for the post-lunch session, we have with us Professor Ravi Bapna. Professor Ravi Bapna is the founding academic director of University of Minnesota's Social Media Business Analytic Collaborative, an interdisciplinary research center that views the billion-strong online social graph as a giant laboratory, a sandbox to gain a deeper causal understanding of how consumers, firms, and societies are being reshaped by social media and big data revolution. He teaches graduate students, executives, CIOs, and CMOs on how to leverage digital revolution for competitive advantage. And he'll be speaking on a very interesting topic. His topic is Friends, Dates, and Trust, the online social graph as an experiment of sandbox. Professor Ravi Bapna.
Thank you. So it's a real pleasure to be here. As Vijay said, wake you up after a heavy lunch, right? Or at least ensure you don't fall asleep. So my topic is on sort of friends, dates, and trust. And it's sort of motivated by the fact that there's a maxim in business, right? That if you can't measure something, you can't really manage it. And what I'll try to sort of hopefully convey in the next half an hour that I have with you is that in the case of social media and in the world of big data, the fundamental challenge really is figuring out what to measure, okay? Very often we tend to sort of gravitate towards things that are simple and easy, such as, let's say, if you want to figure out who's influential, you may look at the number of followers they have on Twitter, or if you want to look at people who manage Facebook fan pages for companies, they may look at how many fans they have and so on. Okay, but that's at some level pretty shallow. So what we really need to do is to get to a more fundamental level of human behavior and try to understand what people are doing. Because if we do that, okay, then we can come up with really transformative experiences, transformative sort of interventions to sort of increase, I guess, social welfare, to increase companies' profits, and so on and so forth. Okay. So overall, I'll share with you experiences from research that we've been doing at the University of Minnesota in our lab, and the focus really is broadly focused. The broad focus really is on thinking about how companies can transform themselves to become what we can call a social enterprise, right? So the motivation really here is to think about imitating what the consumers are doing in real life inside your company, understanding the fundamental behaviors, measuring things that are new and interesting that then lead to good business outcomes. Okay, so that's kind of the overall sort of view of my overall perspective of my talk. The set of fundamental constructs that I'll talk about, again in the context of big data and social media, are essentially this circle that I have out here. Okay, so we'll start with something called engagement, right? What does it really mean? And then move to things like trust. I think that was the topic in the previous discussion, I'm told. Look at friendship, by which I mean peer influence. We'll probably won't have the time to get into legitimacy, but I know many of you probably are interested in the dates and the love part of my title, so I want to talk about that. Okay, most of this is based on some of the work that's been going on at Minnesota. So just to give you a little bit of context, first of all, I think the broad motivation really here is to think in terms of a 3, 4, 5, 6-year transformation of our companies to become, to become or to kind of live and breathe the tools, the behaviors, the technologies that the next generation of consumers are actually living in real life, right? So for a company to transform themselves to become a social enterprise, they have to start thinking about how the consumers are in life. They have to sort of become like that within the company itself, all right? So that's in many ways a fundamental challenge. We had the CIO of Coca-Cola, Mr. Rob Kane, come and give a talk at Minnesota a few weeks ago to my executive MBA class, and he is currently championing a $60 million transformation project within Coke to become the social enterprise. Okay, primarily motivated by something like this out there. Okay, so let's just begin by portraying sort of where we are. Okay, We know that we have a highly instrumented world. We have more than 5 billion people that are carrying cell phones today. We have 1 billion plus people on the online social graph. And the interesting thing about this is that it's not as if social networks are something new or have been essentially invented in the last 10 years. They've been around since the Medicis, right, in Europe. What's really new is that all these activities that people are conducting are now being done in a highly visible manner. Okay, these are being conducted in communities that are actually built on the platform architecture, by which we mean that we as researchers, we as companies have access to the data, to the processes in a systematic way by which we can go and observe. And if we can do that, we can try to sort of really create some good constructs and then see how those constructs link to, let's say, increased sales or increased awareness or increased influence, whatever is of your interest out there, right? So we know this large pool of people who are connected represent what I would call a reservoir of economic and social influence, right? The big question is, how do we dip into the reservoir? And if you take big data and social media combined, okay, it's growing much faster than the software industry, for instance, right? Last couple of days, I was with a bunch of about 30 CIOs who are also at ISB right now. They're kind of bummed that they can't be here, actually. The schedules kind of overlap. But I've been trying to hammer into them that the traditional sort of management of IT that they've been doing for years and years and years is really going to become more and more commoditized, right? So for them to create value is going to be based on leveraging the data that they have, understanding the interactions that the consumers are sort of making visible to them and getting leverage out of that. So let's begin by asking ourselves, how big is big data, right? By some estimates, I came across this particular number out there. By 2015, we are expected to generate 8 zettabytes of data. Okay? Anybody here know what a zettabyte is? It's a big number, right? It's that big. And if you want some context on this, if you like to watch movies, you probably heard of Netflix, right? Netflix has pretty much digitized the entire movie catalog. 1 zettabyte is enough to stream the entire Netflix movie catalog 3,000 times, okay? Just to give you a sense, right? And it's big enough that even HBR in October had this on its cover, right? This is really cool for people like me, because when something like this comes out, I go up to my dean and say, Dean, we need to start like a program on big data. She says, yeah, do it. So this is where I think the next wave of I guess technology-based management is really coming in, and it's really kind of fun to ride this wave. So where is this big data coming from? I would say there are 3 sources of big data. First of all, the last 20 years of investments in enterprise systems, right? The ERPs, the CRMs, the supply chain management systems, all the stuff that we've invested in, that's not going away anywhere. That's just growing, okay? So that's the first source of big data, right? The enterprise systems that we've already put in out there that are basically automating our processes and generating the big data. On top of that, we have consumers who are basically out there, collaborating, communicating, connecting with each other in a highly visible way, and also doing it in a way that's almost addictive, right? People spend more than 7 to 8 hours a week, on average, on Facebook, right? I mean, that's pretty significant. That's taking away time from other sources, right? So let's again, in the interest of sort of waking you up in the early part of the afternoon, let's play this sort of old, have you been to the desert island kind of game? If you get stranded on a desert island, and let's say I gave you a choice between your cell phone and assume it's a smartphone, right? So you've got your Facebook and your Twitter and whatever else you use on it. So if you have a choice of carrying, let's say, a cell phone and carrying, pick anything that's addictive to you, alcohol, okay? How many of you would choose the cell phone over alcohol? Awesome, right? So this is, I'm roughly like 60–70%, right? I can go down this list. Actually, a company in Israel went and did this survey, and you guys are pretty close, okay? So this is sort of the average estimate of people who said that, would you rather, when they were asked this question, would you rather take the cell phone or alcohol? It was 70%. Chocolate, 63%. Caffeine, 55%. Even something like sex, people are willing to give up, Okay, 33% of the people said they'd rather take their cell phone than have the chance to have sex on a remote desert island, right? So this is highly addictive. It's not going away. It's only increasing in time. And finally, the third source of big data, this is kind of generally underappreciated, but actually I would say it's maybe even bigger than the first two combined, is what's called the Internet of Things, right? So IT is now embedded in products, right? So to give you a very, very crude and simple example, I took a picture of my running shoe, all right? This is my running shoe. It has a little Nike sensor on it. I don't know if you guys can see it, right? Along with that is a Nike watch, right? And every time I go for a run, I've been running around ISB, did a 10K yesterday. Every time I go for a run, okay, it generates all kinds of data, okay, which I can at a press of a button upload to a social platform called Nike Plus. So you can see out here, this is a few months ago, me running around Lake Harriet where I live. And you can see kind of like, and it sort of gives me a heat map of how I was doing. So I was actually doing pretty well for the first 1.5 miles. And then it's like a bad stock, after that. It's like highly volatile. So I was kind of struggling and trying to get up and get back to speed and so on. But this simple device, a product as inane as a shoe, is generating this kind of data, which is now part of a social platform, and others people can see how I ran. And there's a Facebook and tweet button on it, you can only imagine sort of the possibilities of, let's say, peer influence that could come out of something like this. Okay. On top of that, this is another picture. I wanted to show you the resolution of the screen is not great, but if it was, you would have seen there's actually an underlying map out here. And this is probably, in my opinion, the best 10K you can run anywhere in the world. It's Stanley Park in Vancouver. Every inch of it is along the ocean, actually, right? So now there is GPS data over my actual running data overlaid onto a social network, and this is just from a little shoe out there, right? So you can just imagine all the different products. A company like GM, for instance, has a product called OnStar, which it puts inside its cars. And those sort of, the OnStar systems that are there, they're tracking everything about your driving habits, okay? And GM has now even taken that and opened it up as an API to anybody in the world. Any developer can have access to the driving patterns of 6 million people that are basically using OnStar out there, right? So you can have access to the data, you can have access to the processes, and then it's only up to your imagination as to what you can do with it, okay? So this is where we are. This is just the state of the world, right? And McKinsey Quarterly had an article about social media. The key thing for me out here was that they basically go out on their limb and say that the vast majority of executives have no idea on how to harness the social media's power. My take on this is that